Today I'm going to show you how to make the heart bracelet. As you can see, the loom bands create the shape of a heart, and I'm going to show you how to make it in these colors. And this is what you'll need: a rainbow loom, a hook, 16 red bands, 15 pink bands, 25 white bands, and a C or a S clip. Before we start, you want to make sure that the 3 rows of your loom are offset, that the middle row is closest to you, and that the opening of the pins is facing away from you. Let's start with our first band, and this is a red colored band. What you want to do is you want to stretch out this red colored band over the first pins of each row, like this. Now it's in a triangle shape. Push it down to make room for the next bands. So grab your second band, and this is going to be in the color white, and you start on the first pin of the middle row and stretch it out to the second pin of the left row. Then you grab another white and you start again on the first pin on the middle row and you stretch it out to the second pin on the right row, like that. Then you grab your second color. This is pink, and you start on the first pin on the left row and you stretch it to the second pin on the middle row. Then another pink. You start on the first pin on the right row and stretch it out to the second pin on the middle row, like that. And from now on, it's going to be a little bit easier because we're going to be following a pattern. So grab a white band and you start on the last pin on the middle row that has colored bands on it, and then you stretch it out diagonally up to the left, but not to the first pin that's diagonally up to the left, but the second. Then you grab another white band and you start on that same pin on the middle row and you drag it diagonally up to the right and you put it over that pin. Then you grab your next colored band. So we're going to do pink, red, and now it's red's turn. And you start on the pin underneath the pin that you just ended on with the white on the left side. And then you do that same thing on the right side. This might be a little confusing, so I'm going to show you again. After the colored bands, you grab white, and then you start on the last pin on the middle row that has colored bands over it, and you stretch it out diagonally up and to the left on a brand new pin, like that. Then you grab your colored bands, and you start on not the last pin on the left row that has a white band, but the pin before that one, and you do that same thing on the right side, and you stretch it out to a new pin on the middle row. Then from that pin, you stretch out 2 white bands to the left and the right, and then from a pin underneath that on the left and the right side, you stretch out a colored band to a new pin on the middle row. I know this pattern might be a little bit confusing, but it's not that hard once you get the hang of it. So if you're still confused, then I would recommend you rewind the video and listen to the explanation again and follow along. Or you just pause this video while it's fast forwarding, and then you just kind of check and see where exactly I'm putting the bands, and you could just follow along with that. Once you've gotten to the end of the loom, we're going to do something a little bit different. So the white bands are on the second to last pins on the left and the right row, and instead of adding a new band from the second to last pin on the middle row going to the last pins on the left and the right row, you just stretch it out straight up to the last pin on the middle row. Then you grab your colored band and just add it as you normally would from the second to last pin on the left row to the last pin on the middle row, and second to last on the right to the last pin on the middle row, like that. And then we have to add one more white band, and this is going to be a cap band. So put it around 2 fingers, stretch it out, turn it into the shape of an 8 and fold it back over your fingers. Now you folded it double, and this band you put on the very last pin on the middle row, and that's a cap band. Once you've done that, you want to turn your loom around so that the opening of the pins is facing you, and then you grab your hook, and we're going to start looming. Yay! So you start looming on the very first pin on the middle row. What you want to do is you want to grab the red bands and loom it to the left and the right, and then you grab the white bands and loom it up. So you put your hook inside of the cap band and you push this cap band away. Then you grab the top red band and this should be the band that's connected to this first pin on the left row. So make sure you are grabbing the right band and you hook it over that pin. Then you want to grab the band that's connected to the first pin on the right row. So again, put your hook inside of the cap band, grab that red band, you take it out and hook it over to that pin on the right row, like that. And now you want to grab the white band that's connected to the pin above it. So you put your hook inside of the cap bands again on the first pin on the middle row. You grab the white band that's around this pin, you take it out and hook it over the second pin on the middle row, like that. Now we're going to be starting the pattern. First you're going to hook the diagonal white bands and then the colored bands. And I'm going to show you that first. So put your hook inside of the first pin on the left row and you put your hook inside of the color bands. You grab the white band, take it off of the pin and hook it onto the pin that it's connected to. Then you start on the right row. I do that exact same thing. So you put your hook inside of the color bands, grab the white band that's around the pin, you take it out and you hook it up to the pin that it's connected to, like that. Once you've done that, we're going to be hooking the colored bands, and you do that from the middle row. So you start in the pin that has the colored bands around it, and make sure you put your hook inside of the pin, and you grab the first colored band and hook it to the left. Then you grab the second colored band and hook it to the right. Again, make sure that you are grabbing the right bands, because the pin that you are hooking it to is the pin that the band should be connected to. Now we're going to do the same thing again, but on the next pins. So now we're going to be starting on the white bands on the second pins of the left and the right row, and then the third pin of the middle row, you start to hook the colored bands. So the second pin on the left row, you grab the white band and hook it over to the pin that it's connected to, and you do the same thing on the right side. Then from the third pin on the middle row, you grab the first colored band that's connected to the left side, you take it out, and then you hook it over the pin that it is connected to, and you do that same thing on the right side. Here it was a little tight, so I'm making it a bit looser, just so it will end up a little bit neater. It's not necessary, but it's an option if you want to do that. Then we're going to be hooking the white bands again. So the white bands you hook from left to the middle and then right to the middle row. And the colored bands you hook from the middle row to left and then to right. Then we're going to be hooking the white bands again from left to middle, right to middle. And then from the middle row, you hook the colored bands to the outside. So first to the left and then to the right. And then you continue doing that until the very end of the loom. Again, you can always rewind the video and listen to the explanation again. Or you can pause the video, continue hooking, and then play it again once you're ready for the very last step. Or you could just let this video play and listen to me ramble, because that's fine too. We've almost gotten to the very end, and then I'm going to explain to you how to finish off this bracelet so you can actually wear it. Now we've gotten to the end, and the most important thing is that you hook this very last triangle red band. So you put your hook inside of the colored bands on the last pin on the left row, and you grab that red band and you take it over to the last pin on the middle row, and you do that same thing on the right side. So put your hook inside of the colored bands on the last pin on the right row, you take the red band out and hook it over the last pin on the middle row, like that. And if you've done that correctly, then your bracelet should be finished. So now what you want to do is you put your hook inside of the very last pin on the middle row and take a white band, and you put your white band on the outer end of your hook and make sure you hold on to the other side of the white band. And then you pull this white band through all the bands on the last pin on the middle row. And then you put your hook through the other side of your white band again. So that way your whole bracelet is connected to your hook and to this white band. Then I'm going to put the white band on the thicker part of my hook, and then very, very carefully I'm going to pull off all the bands from the loom. Because there's so many bands on the loom, it's pretty tight, so it can be a little bit hard to pull it off. But just be careful, because your bands can definitely break, and if they break, then your whole bracelet will fall apart, and nobody wants that to happen, of course. Once you've done, you can kind of stretch it out to make it a little bit neater, but it's not necessary. And then what you want to do is you want to grab your loom again and turn it back around, and then you add some bands in the color of your choice over the right row, just in a straight line. So you start from the first pin, you stretch your first band out to the second pin, then you grab your next band, and you start on the second pin to the third, your next band from the third to the fourth, etc. I'm using a total of 6 bands. The longer you want your bracelet to be, the more bands you will need, and of course you can make it shorter too. Then you grab the bands that are on your hook, you take it off of your hook, and you put it around the pin on the right row that has bands on it, but it has to be the very, very last pin that has a band on it. Then you turn your loom back around, and now you can start looming this bracelet extension so it will fit all around your wrist. So what you want to do is you put your hook inside of the bands of your bracelet, and then you grab that colored band that is around the pin. You take it out and hook it over to the next pin on top of that one. Then from there, you grab your next band and you hook it over to the pin on top of that, and you continue doing that until the end. Then once you've gotten to the end, I find it easier to take that very last band and stretch it out to the pin next to it. This is not necessary, it's just a little bit easier to grab your C or your S clip and hook it onto those bands, just so it's a little bit easier. Then only after you've added your C or your S clip, you can take out your bracelet. And all you have to do now is attach the other side of your bracelet to your clip. So you grab your clip and you grab the other side of your bracelet, and as you can see, there's a very, very beautiful little band right in the middle, and you put your clip onto that like that, and there you go. Now it's officially a bracelet, and you can put it around your wrist, and this is what it looks like. It's very pink. So of course you can use other colors too if you like. In the beginning of this video, I showed you the bracelet but with rainbow colors, so of course you can use those. Or if you use other colors, then I would like to know which ones you used, and you can leave that in the comments below this video. Well, I'll see you in the next one. Bye!